KTN as we try to process what has happened in the last 3 days and how this country can move forward. Join me now, as we promised earlier, the CEO of Safaricom, Mr. Bob Collymore, to my far right, and to my immediate right, Kenya Red Cross boss, Abbass Gullet. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for coming, and I want to start from the very beginning for thanking you and your individual roles and how you used your corporate platform to bring some good out of this incident. Bob, let me start with you. How do you think Kenyans have coped? What's your assessment?
Well, for starters, I don't think there's much in terms of individual role, because this is the hero of the moment.
Yeah.
But you know, I think anyone looking at this, whether you're in Kenya or not, this is something which really gets to the heart of what Kenya is about. You know, it is an attack, it's an assault not just on humanity, but it's also an assault on the progress that Kenya has made over these years. We are now seen as the hub, the business hub of East Africa, and we're challenging places like South Africa and Nigeria. And this is an assault on the progress we've made. And so, you know, we have to hit back pretty hard. And you know, we as Kenyans, I'm not Kenyan, but you know, Kenyans are known to be remarkably resilient, and I think we're seeing that resilience even 2 or 3 days after the attack.
And we'll talk a little bit about how do we effectively hit back. Let me come to you, Abbass. What do you think of how the country has dealt with this? It's 3 days in, we're still dealing with it. How do you think we've managed it, right from government to how Kenyans have shown up to contribute whatever they could?
I would say, and remarkable is a word that I can use, and remarkable from the sense of, from the first moment this news hit this nation and this city of Nairobi to today, that Kenyans have been overwhelmingly generous. They've been on the forefront. They've been their brothers and sisters keepers, and they have come out in the strongest terms to show solidarity, nationhood, and pride, and being very proud of being Kenyan. From what we've seen, I mean, the very first few minutes and hours of this incident, people were out there rescuing, recovering the dead, the wounded, the injured, making every possible, using resources, private vehicles, government, private sector, everybody really coming on board and giving that helping hand. We've seen this moving now to people being fed, the armed forces, the security forces, the humanitarian workers, the communities coming out to provide them health, water, food, cup of tea or coffee. The blood drives that have been going on countrywide the last 3 days have been phenomenal as far as I'm concerned. So at the end of the day, if the idea here was to shake the resolve and the unity of Kenyans, I think what has happened is that this has been the opposite. That is actually emboldened and strengthened Kenyans more than ever.
Absolutely, and we've seen overwhelming support in the joint campaign that you have run through the 848484 M-Pesa platform. Bob, please tell us, how much have Kenyans raised so far, and is that campaign still on?
Well, what's remarkable is that actually over 207,000 Kenyans have contributed over the past few days, which is remarkable. You remember when we did Kenyans for Kenya? It took a long time before we had that many people participate. So 270,000 people have so far contributed about 6 to 4 million shillings. Plus in the diaspora, I think we've got about 300,000 shillings, which has come in via Western Union. The campaign will run until tomorrow afternoon. I think you know, Abbass and I have decided that we'll close it at around 5 tomorrow. We're still targeting 80 million shillings, which is about $1 million. And at that point, very pleased to say that Safaricom will then step in and take that up to 100 million shillings, because I think that's how much money this guy needs to do the job he's got to do.
That's an amazing pledge, and thank you for that. Break down for us how this money will then be transferred to the Kenya Red Cross, and what exactly you're going to be using these funds for.
Okay, so the understanding we have with Safaricom, and I want to say from the outset, and I really want to congratulate Safaricom. There is to a smaller extent, again, Airtel doing theirs, because we know the numbers are different. But just to say that for me, the most interesting issue here is that is leadership, corporate leadership shown by Safaricom. And Safaricom talked to us already Sunday that they could do this, and the resources raised would go back to the people and communities affected by this tragic event. And we said yes. And as Bob said, it's already over 200,000 Kenyans have come forward. And that again just proves the point of how resilient and how generous Kenyans are, being their brothers and sisters keepers. So the funds that will be collected clearly would be used for this operation as a whole. Number one is about counseling, and we can talk more about it eventually. It is about the trauma. It is about the operations. It's costed various agencies and organizations huge amount of money so far in terms of manpower, professional manpower, secondary manpower, in terms of ambulance care, in terms of relief, in terms of supplies, in terms of equipment. And this staff working day and night continuous from Saturday afternoon to today. So this would be a huge area of work that still needs to be done. So I would say we would undertake to do a proper full-fledged plan between ourselves and Safaricom. We will have audit firm to audit this money. We will split this money in various categories of what will be done. For the operation and the ambulances, it costs a lot of money, and people would realize. And I would say, in fact, this whole operation, this country is going to cost this country huge amount of money. The 100 million that Safaricom and the Kenyan public would have donated, I would say to me would be a drop in an ocean compared to what would be required. The major issue would be psychosocial support, counseling. We saw just this week, when we go back to the American embassy bomb blast of almost 12, 13 years ago, people are still living with that trauma today. They might have healed the wounds, but emotionally we're not there. Here we know there are hundreds of people have been affected. Them and their loved one put together, direct and indirect, you may talk of thousands of people. In fact, I would even dare to say the whole nation is traumatized in this country. So for the funds, they will go a long way in contributing small part of the cost, but more of what needs to be done. The people who need prosthesis, I mean, I know of one particular young lady who, I'm sure a leg has been chopped off because of the condition she was in last Saturday. To save her life, she'd have to go out with a bit of leg. So it is that serious. But I really want to say from the outset, I want to thank Safaricom for once again, showing leadership in corporate leadership. But I also want to thank many companies through the blood drive that have been out there. I want to thank the Ministry of Health staff, National Blood Transfusion Services, for having been out these 3 days. What we've collected in a matter of 2 days up to yesterday, not counting today, was 6,434 units in Nairobi alone of blood. In Nairobi alone, we collect in a month about 1,500 per month. This time we're collecting that in a day.
That's amazing.
Can I just, sorry, just before you get to the next question, just a bit more clarity around where the funds is going to be used. You know, the Red Cross will be the custodians of the fund, but if you take the ambulance service, for example, we must recognize that, you know, we had ambulance services from AAR, from AMREV, from St. John's. You know, these guys have all done a fantastic job, and so they will be the custodians, and, you know, we're breaking up how that ambulance fund will be spent.
How soon do you think you'll be able to put that out to the public? Just to see the breakdown of how you're going to be able to distribute the funds?
Well, we're going to hand over the funds, I think, by Thursday this week, the day after tomorrow, once we finish adding them all up. And I think that within, how long will it take? By Thursday.
By Thursday, when we're getting the money, we can already show how the split will be.
But there's also a lot of people who are asking, you know, who are taking medical care, and, you know, my good friend James Macharia is beginning to get a bit worried about the cost of this medical care. So there are people who can't afford to get out of those hospitals, and, you know, some of the funds will be going towards you know, dissuading some of those costs as well. Yeah,
you've been described as a good corporate citizen, and sometimes your critics may say it's a bit of PR, but you have your reasons as to why you have led Safaricom as you have since your tenure to respond to national crises that initially really should be the preserve of government. Why do you think it's so important for corporate citizens to stand up and do something?
You know, government, when we talk about government, we always tend to think it's somebody else. Government is us. It's our tax money. And, you know, if you want government to foot the bill for everything, we're just going to have to put the taxes up. Now, we're also the largest taxpayer in the country, so if you put the taxes up, it's going to hit us as much as anyone else, of course. But the ordinary Nanchi will suffer much more. We are not something separate from society. Safaricom is part of that society, and if we have a healthy society, then it's good for us all. So we don't think we're doing anything special. We're just doing what is right, and there could be no kind of fancy theories around it. It's just the right thing to do.
What do you think the role, and let me just stay with you, Bob, a little bit, what do you think the role of business leaders will be in the days to come in terms of restoring confidence in investing in Kenya and saying that this is still a safe place to do your business?
Well, already I've started to speak to some of them. In fact, some of them were on the flight back with me last night, and they were saying, should we as the business community make a statement? Should we call a press conference? Should we talk about business as usual? So I think we're still mulling that over. But it is business as usual because life kind of has to go on, which is a callous thing to say, because they are currently, I'm not quite sure what the exact number is, but they're currently 60-something families who are suffering the most amazing bereavement. But nonetheless, we need to demonstrate to those who are setting out to have this onslaught on humanity. We can talk about an onslaught on Kenyans. It is an onslaught on humanity, and we cannot afford to let them get away with it.
Abbass, the whole nation is in one way or another traumatized. Journalists are traumatized, your staff are traumatized, families that have lost loved ones, that have been lucky to see their loved ones survived. We're all going through some sort of pain, and I know that your primary responsibility will be to those who were directly affected. But could you just tell the country, perhaps help us understand what the different phases of grief, if you like, will be, and at what stage one may feel that I need to see someone, that this is something that I should not cope with by myself?
Well, I guess one is right in saying, like I said earlier, that maybe the whole nation is traumatized by the fact that our televisions have captured our imagination. People have seen what has happened. We've had, some people may have seen through social media raw footage that have traumatized children and families and everybody. But I think first thing first, the challenge up to now has been for the conclusion of this crisis in the first phase of the emergency phase of it. Once the area is cleared by the security forces, once the potential of dead bodies that are remaining there is cleared and everything is out, then I think it will start sinking in, because we'll start going back to work with those in hospital, we'll start working with those that need to be buried, and we'll see funerals, and we'll see more emotions that will come into, because some people that we know who have lost loved ones who were dear even to all of us in one form or another, I think it will start hitting home. What has already been happening from psychosocial support, psychiatric counseling process at Visual Center, that since Sunday morning, this has been already ongoing for the directly affected people. But I can talk about the security forces, the media, the humanitarian workers, and all that have been involved in search and rescue would be the first one that are directly affected, and the families. And these are people that we need to work with. So already, as part of these funds, we said would be used for this purpose. On the other hand, we would need much more bigger funds and much more huge manpower to work on these issues. And already I think we are putting measures in that to scale up the numbers to work on this.
You said something interesting earlier about the fact that Kenyans are donating blood and whatever else they can is in itself a way of coming to terms with what's happening. Could you just elaborate quickly on that?
For sure. When we started already on Sunday, I mean, we're not only giving blood for the sake of giving blood, but I mean, for us, what it meant was already in itself a healing process, bringing Kenyans together. Not your color, not your political affiliation or thinking, not your religion, not whatever you may say you're here, and bringing people together, like we saw the head of state, President Kenyatta, the former prime minister, former deputy prime minister, coming together. When the nation is faced with such situation, then the nation becomes paramount. Our internal family issues takes a backseat role. So for me, the process of Kenyans coming together to donate blood, day in, day out for the last 3 days countrywide, and these last 2 days at Huru Park, having young people coming to sing, to donate, to give blood, to give bread, to give milk, to give assistance, school kids and all that coming out there and entertaining others, in itself for me is a process of healing, and we just need to continue with that and have concert. Today we had musicians coming to dance and sing and play and entertain people. We had ambassadors from many nations coming yesterday and day before and even today to make their donation in solidarity of Kenyans. So I would just say that for me, the process needs to continue. We need to take this to the next level.
I want to thank you both again for coming.
But before you thank, I mean, can I please? I mean, because I must pay tribute to this man.
Yes.
You know, if there was a hero in my life, it is Abbass. And Abbass was describing what he went through on Sunday when he was in the Mao, when the gunmen were there evacuating people. You know, I think Kenyan couldn't have a prouder son than this one, and me a prouder brother. I'm really pleased to be.
Well, we appreciate you both,
Abbass,
Abbass, your entire team, what they've gone through without bulletproof vests and helmets. We appreciate you. We appreciate you, Safaricom, for providing that platform for Kenyans to contribute, and for what you're going to do in terms of topping up the money to reach that 100 million, I believe, mark. Yes. So I thank you. I thank you both for coming. Abbass Gullet, Secretary General of the Kenya Red Cross.